As my heir, William now assumes the Scottish titles which have meant so much to me. I am proud to create him Prince of Wales, Tywysog Cymru. Our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations.
What just happened inside Buckingham Palace has left the entire world speechless. Reports are flooding in that King Charles has officially decided to step down from the throne, a move no one saw coming. After decades of waiting, after years of carrying the weight of the crown, the king's final words have shaken the very foundation of the monarchy. I'm abdicating. But why now? Why, after all this time, when the nation finally began to settle under his rule? Whispers suggest it wasn't illness, nor pressure, but something far deeper. Something that might change how we see the royal family forever. And as Charles steps aside, Prince William and Princess Catherine are suddenly thrust into the spotlight not just as heirs, but as the chosen future of the British nation. Was this planned all along, or has the king made a decision driven by emotion rather than duty? Stay with us, because what we're about to uncover might be the most unexpected royal twist in decades, one that reveals the truth behind King Charles's shocking abdication. The shocking moment at Buckingham Palace. It began like any other royal address, formal, polished, and carefully prepared. The air inside Buckingham Palace carried that familiar weight of history, the kind that made even silence feel grand. The crimson drapes framed the golden crest of the crown above the king's chair, and the royal staff moved quietly around the room, ensuring every detail was perfect. The king sat poised, his hands resting lightly on the ornate desk before him, the polished oak gleaming under the warm lights. To anyone watching, it seemed like another traditional message from the monarch, calm, dignified, and composed. But there was something different this time, something unspoken, yet deeply felt. The king's eyes didn't carry the sharpness of command. Instead, they reflected an emotion rare for a sovereign acceptance. His expression wasn't one of authority, but of closure. His breathing was slow, deliberate, as though he was preparing himself not just to speak to a nation, but to say goodbye to something he had waited for all his life.
I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow.
The journalists seated before him sensed it too. The usual confidence in the room was replaced by anticipation and unease. Even the steady clicking of cameras seemed hesitant, unsure whether they were about to capture a milestone or a farewell. And then, the moment came. His voice, deep and steady, broke the tension in the room. Each syllable fell with measured grace, echoing through centuries of royal duty. "My duty has been fulfilled," he said, pausing as if to let the words sink into the hearts of everyone present. "I now pass this sacred responsibility to my son and his wife, the Prince and Princess of Wales. The future is theirs." It was as though time itself stopped. Reporters lowered their pens. Courtiers exchanged glances that said more than words ever could. Even the grand ticking of the palace clock seemed to hesitate. For a man who had waited more than 70 years to wear the crown, to lay it down now voluntarily felt almost impossible. Yet as King Charles continued, the tremor in his voice wasn't weakness. It was strength in its purest form. This was not a surrender. It was succession with grace, a choice made not out of defeat, but out of deep wisdom. And in that haunting silence that followed, every eye turned toward William and Catherine, standing quietly, holding each other's gaze, the new faces of Britain's tomorrow, carrying the promise of a renewed monarchy. The real reason behind the abdication. Behind the heavy velvet curtains of Buckingham Palace, where every whisper carries through centuries of history, quiet conversations had been unfolding for months. Courtiers spoke in hushed tones, advisors exchanged glances during late-night meetings, and those closest to King Charles began to sense what was coming long before the world did. The truth was simple, and yet deeply human. The king had not only been bearing the weight of the crown, but also the relentless passage of time. His health, though always treated as a matter of discretion, had been showing signs of strain. Long hours of official duties, the pressure of public appearances, and the toll of private battles had left their mark. But insiders insist this was never a story of defeat, it was a story of reflection. Charles, after decades of waiting to wear the crown, had come to realize something that very few monarchs ever do, that legacy isn't measured in years on the throne, but in the strength of what you leave behind. He had witnessed a rapidly changing world. Traditions once sacred now faced constant scrutiny. Royal customs clashed with modern expectations. The monarchy was evolving, and Charles, ever the realist, understood that evolution sometimes required letting go. He was not retreating from duty, he was redefining it. And standing before him was the future his son and daughter-in-law, William and Catherine. Together, they had become the heartbeat of the new monarchy. William's calm resolve and Catherine's warmth had brought a new sense of connection to the British people. Their ability to blend the elegance of the old world with the empathy demanded by the new had not gone unnoticed by Charles. He saw in them what many believed the monarchy needed most: renewal. Friends say the king spoke often of continuity of passing the torch not in weakness, but in wisdom. His abdication, then, was not a surrender to age or illness, but an act of profound foresight. It was his final lesson in leadership, to know when to step aside so that the next generation could shine brighter. In that moment, Charles wasn't just ending a reign, he was ensuring the crown's survival not through power, but through grace. William and Catherine, the nation's new hope. When William and Catherine stepped out onto the palace balcony after King Charles's emotional announcement, the world seemed to pause in collective awe. The crisp air of London carried the echoes of cheers, camera shutters, and distant church bells ringing across the city. The crowd, gathered in thousands outside Buckingham Palace, erupted with a mixture of disbelief and elation. It was a historic moment, one that few had expected to witness in their lifetime. For years, there had been endless speculation about when the Prince of Wales would step forward into a more defined role. He had long been the quiet strength behind his father.
Many calling him our future king and declaring that he did his family proud.
Representing the monarchy at state visits, charities, and ceremonies. Gradually, without fanfare, he had already begun embodying the leadership that many believed the modern era required. And now, standing beside Catherine, radiant yet composed, William finally appeared not just as the heir, but as the future. Catherine's presence was magnetic. Her calm smile, steady gaze, and humble posture said more than any words could. She radiated warmth, the kind that bridged generations and softened even the harshest critics of the crown. For years, she had been the grounding force of the royal family, blending tradition with a touch of real humanity. Whether comforting a grieving child or greeting foreign leaders, she carried an authenticity that made people feel seen. And now, as the new Princess of Wales ascended into an even greater role, her strength became the symbol of a monarchy reborn. When William finally addressed the nation, his voice was steady but tender. "My father's faith in us means more than words can express," he said. "We will serve this nation with loyalty, compassion, and unity." It wasn't a speech crafted for grandeur, it was the heartfelt promise of a son continuing his father's dream. The words struck deeply because they were sincere, echoing through the hearts of a nation that had longed for renewal. For millions watching around the world, the moment felt transformative. The monarchy, so often viewed as distant, suddenly seemed relatable again. William and Catherine weren't just royal figures, they were partners, parents, and symbols of hope. Their unity reflected a new vision, one that balanced history with humanity. As the crowd chanted their names, one thing became clear. This was not merely the dawn of a new reign. It was the beginning of a new kind of royalty, one built not on grandeur, but on grace. The emotional reactions across Britain. The days that followed King Charles's unexpected abdication were unlike anything Britain had experienced in generations. Streets once filled with routine chatter now carried a hum of disbelief, reverence, and emotion. Outside Buckingham Palace, an ocean of people gathered, some waving Union Jacks, others clutching handwritten notes and flowers. The air was heavy, not with sorrow, but with sentiment. It felt as though an era had quietly ended, and a new one had just begun to breathe. Crowds stood shoulder to shoulder, strangers united by a single unspoken realization they had witnessed history. Some wept softly, recalling the young prince who had once walked behind his mother's coffin, now stepping aside as king.
Prince William is revealing in a new BBC documentary who decided he and Harry should walk behind their mother's coffin.
Others smiled, proud of the dignity with which Charles had handled his final act of leadership. Reporters described it as a moment of grace the world didn't see coming. For the older generation, this moment stirred deep nostalgia. Many remembered the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II, her steadfastness through wars, loss, and change. Watching Charles, her eldest son, willingly pass the torch reminded them of the monarchy's enduring rhythm that no crown is eternal, and every reign must end for another to begin. It was bittersweet, like closing a cherished chapter in a long, familiar book. Younger Britons, however, viewed it through a different lens. To them, this wasn't the end of something, it was the renewal of everything. William and Catherine represented a royal family that felt approachable, grounded, and modern. Social media platforms were ablaze with messages of hope and admiration. Hashtags like #NewEraForBritain and #LongLiveTheWaleses trended worldwide. One comment summed it up perfectly. Charles didn't step down out of weakness. He stepped aside out of wisdom. Another user wrote, "This is what leadership looks like, knowing when to lead and when to let go." Those words were shared millions of times across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, painting a picture of collective respect rarely seen in such divisive times. Even global leaders joined in. Messages poured in from Washington, Paris, and Canberra, praising King Charles's courage to prioritize continuity over control. The Prime Minister called it a moment of profound humility, a king putting duty above self. But not every reaction was celebratory. For many, Charles's abdication carried the quiet ache of farewell. He had waited his entire life to wear the crown, only to surrender it sooner than anyone imagined. There was sadness in that, a recognition of mortality, of the weight of time. One elderly woman outside Windsor Castle summed it up through tears. He didn't lose the throne, he chose peace. And somehow that made all the difference. As the days passed, what remained wasn't confusion or controversy, it was calm. In a world often ruled by chaos, King Charles had chosen to leave on his own terms. He hadn't been taken by tragedy or dethroned by scandal. He had simply gracefully let go, and in that act, he became something far greater than a ruler, a man who understood when to make way for the future. The private farewell, father to son. In the stillness of Windsor Castle, long after the final applause faded and the world's cameras had turned away, a quieter, far more meaningful scene unfolded behind closed doors. The grandeur of ceremony gave way to the simplicity of human connection, father and son. No titles, no thrones, no scripts. Just King Charles and Prince William, standing face to face in a moment that carried the weight of centuries. Those present described the air as heavy with both pride and emotion. The walls that had witnessed coronations, weddings, and royal councils now held a different kind of history, one that wasn't written in gold ink, but in the quiet language of love and legacy. Charles, always known for his thoughtful pauses and measured tone, reportedly took a deep breath before speaking words that would echo in William's heart forever. "This crown is not a prize," he said softly. "It's a promise. Never forget who you wear it for." There was a silence after that, not awkward, but sacred. William, who had spent years watching his father bear the burden of monarchy with both dignity and restraint, finally saw the man behind the crown. For the first time, the distance that duty had created between them seemed to dissolve. Charles wasn't speaking as a monarch giving up power. He was speaking as a father entrusting his life's purpose to his son. William's reply was simple, just a quiet nod, eyes glistening with the weight of responsibility and gratitude. In that nod lay everything words could not express: respect, understanding, and the unspoken promise to honor his father's legacy while shaping his own path forward. A few moments later, Catherine entered the room, her presence bringing a calm that felt almost symbolic, a gentle bridge between past and future. Together, the three stood by the tall windows overlooking the royal gardens. The evening sun spilled across the lawns. Charles had spent years nurturing the same gardens he once described as a place where nature and duty meet. Looking out, it was as though they could all feel the invisible thread connecting generations past, present, and yet to come. For Charles, that moment wasn't about loss. It was about letting go with peace, knowing the monarchy was in hands that understood the balance between tradition and compassion. For William and Catherine, it was the quiet realization that the next chapter had begun, one that demanded not only leadership, but love. And though the formal abdication ceremony lasted only a few minutes in front of cameras, that private farewell in Windsor carried a far deeper resonance. It was the heartbeat of a dynasty, a father's wisdom meeting a son's readiness. The British monarchy had faced wars, controversies, and centuries of change, but this was perhaps its most intimate and profoundly human transition yet. A passing of the crown, not as a symbol of rule, but as a testament of trust. What this means for the future of the monarchy. If King Charles's abdication truly came to pass, it would not just be a change in leadership, it would be a redefinition of monarchy itself. For centuries, British kings and queens have served until their final breath, their reigns measured by endurance rather than evolution. But this moment, this quiet act of stepping aside, could mark the beginning of something entirely new, a monarchy that adapts not by force, but by choice. Charles's decision, seen through the lens of history, would challenge one of the oldest royal traditions, that the crown is a lifelong burden. Instead, it could now be viewed as a sacred trust, one that can be passed with wisdom rather than withheld out of duty. Such a transformation would signal to the world that strength in leadership isn't only about holding on. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to pass the torch. William and Catherine represent the kind of modern monarchy many Britons have longed for, approachable, compassionate, and deeply human. They've raised their children with warmth rather than distance, allowing the public rare glimpses of genuine family life inside royal walls. From their visits to hospitals and schools to their quiet support of mental health initiatives, their every gesture feels grounded in authenticity. Catherine's empathy and William's sense of duty form a partnership that balances tradition with progress, the very balance that has kept the crown alive through centuries of change. In their hands, the monarchy could become less about ceremony and more about service. Imagine a royal family that listens as much as it leads one, that stands shoulder to shoulder with the public rather than above it. This vision aligns perfectly with the values of a modern Britain: inclusion, compassion, and understanding. William and Catherine's reign could reflect not the monarchy of marble halls, but of real hearts, a symbol of unity rather than hierarchy. As for King Charles, stepping back would not mean stepping away. His influence, wisdom, and decades of experience would still guide from behind the scenes. He could become the quiet mentor of a new generation, the steady hand behind the throne, ensuring that the principles of heritage and duty endure even as the world continues to evolve. In this way, his abdication wouldn't mark the end of his story, but rather its most profound chapter. Perhaps history will remember Charles not as the monarch who ruled the longest, but as the one who dared to let go, to trust the future to those ready to shape it. Because in the end, true leadership isn't about holding power until time runs out. It's about ensuring that what you leave behind continues to inspire, to unite, and to endure. And sometimes the most powerful act a king can make is to step aside so that a new light can shine. And so, if that day ever truly comes, the day King Charles bows out and passes the torch to William and Catherine, it won't just be the end of a reign. It will be the rebirth of a legacy. It would remind the world that even in tradition, there is room for transformation. That the strength of the monarchy isn't just in crowns or castles, but in the courage to evolve. Charles's story would not be one of retreat, but of renewal. And for William and Catherine, it would be the beginning of a new royal era, one defined not by distance, but by connection. History would remember this not as the fall of a king, but as the moment a father entrusted his dream to his children, and in doing so, ensured it would live on. So, what do you think? Would King Charles ever take such a step in reality? Could you imagine the impact of this decision on Britain and the world? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the royal world is full of surprises, and you won't want to miss the next one.